All right. Well, welcome to the first installment in quite a while of the College Admissions Inside Scoop webinar with me and Brandon. I'll introduce us in a second, but if you went to any of our college chat webinars in 2023, especially in early 2023, this is the same thing, but we've just changed the name. Normally, our format is very conversational, where the two of us go back and forth with our different levels of expertise and talk about the topic. Today, because we have a lot of information to share with you, it's going to be more of a slideshow. We'll be providing more of a presentation, I should say, and we'll be giving you a lot of information, but there still will be a Q&A at the end. So, Brandon, could you advance the slide? So the two of us are Brandon Mack and Kieran Lyons. Brandon, he has 13 years of experience as a college admissions officer and director, ultimately as a director, including several years as the director of college admissions. Well, sorry, as the admissions director at Rice University, which is also my alma mater. And currently he's the director of college admissions here at To the Top. You'll see his email address on there. You can also contact him through other ways, but so you don't need to worry about jotting that down. And my name's Kieran Lyons. I have worked for To the Top for over 7 years as the college essay coach and now the director of education programs. I also have a PhD and a Master's of Fine Arts in English and in writing, respectively. And so I was a teacher in college and a college level instructor for basically 8 years. My email is also on there, but you can catch that later. I just want to give a brief overview if you're not familiar or you don't know all aspects of what To the Top Education does. We basically break down into having three wings or components to our company. I'll show this slide again at the end, and I'll go into more detail about it once you have, so you can have an understanding of how these different things connect to college admissions, because they all do. But basically, we have advanced planning, which is guidance through high school, and in some cases through college, for students to work on their planning, to work on their character, to work on their study skills, and make sure that they have a successful 4 years in high school, up to 4 years in high school. And then they're handed off to our admissions team, which, although we do high school and we do all kinds of academic admissions, including grad school, what Brandon works on and who I work with most often are students who are applying to college. And I'll go into what our services related to that are later as well. And our newest wing, which we fully developed recently, is the Academy, which I'm the director of. And that is where all of our academic, social, and professional instruction is. So that is our classes, our tutoring, and our test prep. And that's just to make sure that you have the grades and the test scores to go along with the extracurriculars and with the development of your character when you do apply to college or grad school or some sort of summer program or anything that's selective and elite like that. Go ahead. And today, so just an overview of what we're going to talk about. So first, we're going to talk about current admissions trends. That's you'll see what we mean, but it's basically what is going on for people who have their finger on the pulse of college admissions right now. We'll talk about important factors in admissions decisions, which is obviously very much related to that. One of which is essays, and I'll talk to you a lot about the continued and maybe changing importance of college essays, as well as the changes to standardized tests, especially the SAT, which might affect how you need to prepare for them and how colleges also are interpreting them and who is requiring them. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A. So if you have a question while we are talking, before we get to the Q&A, I'd ask you to please either save it for the Q&A, or you can put it in the chat. And someone may get back to you, someone from To the Top may get back to you as we're talking, but we're not going to interrupt the presentation with a Q&A until we get to the end. All right, Brandon, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Kieran, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. And thank you so much once again for joining us. So, the first section, we're going to talk about college admission trends, and this is going to include some recent information with respect to what has just happened during this admission cycle with respect to early decision and early action. Because as we know, many schools are still in the midst of making their final decisions for regular decision. So this is going to give you a sense of the competitiveness of the overall application process. So as you can see, we have 2002, 2003, 2022, 2023, and 2024 data related to early decision, early action, and restricted early action for many of the highly selective institutions across the United States. And as you can see, the rates of acceptance are going down, meaning that colleges and universities are becoming increasingly selective even amongst early decision. So, as many people have come to know, generally applying early decision and early action usually gives you a boost in your chances of admission because of the fact that you're making a commitment of attending the university, especially if you're applying for early decision, but also there's an increased likelihood that you'll attend the institution generally if you apply for early action. But even amongst those decision plans, it is becoming increasingly competitive. So, for example, at Rice University, which is my alma mater and where I used to work, in 2022, you see that we had an 18% early decision acceptance rate. This year, it was a 15% early decision acceptance rate. And then, as you can see, with institutions even like Fordham, where you have a 60% early decision acceptance rate, is now down to 57%. So, as you can see, these trends are really demonstrating that it is becoming increasingly competitive to be admitted, especially to a highly selective university. Now, many individuals thought that with the recent Supreme Court decision that it was going to become easier to be admitted to a college or university. I am here to tell you the trends definitely suggest it is not becoming easier. And we're definitely going to talk about how some factors in the admission decision have not changed in terms of how important they are, but there are some factors that have actually been increased due to a variety of different reasons, but also including the Supreme Court decision. But the reason for why we're demonstrating this is because we want you to understand that this is not becoming an easier process, it is becoming a more competitive process. So, as such, you need to make sure that you're putting the time and attention needed to put forth the best application, even if you are applying for early decision or early action. And we're definitely going to go through some of those factors that you should be considering when applying. Kieran, was there anything you wanted to mention with this particular slide?
No, I think that that covers it.
All right. So we're going to talk about those important factors that admission officers consider. So this is the National Association for College Admission Counseling, which is one of the main organizations dedicated to the field of college admissions. They issue a survey every year regarding factors in the admission decision, and it goes out to college admission officers from across the country. And so they surveyed 185 college admission officers and directors on which factors are important in the college admission process. So, as you can see at the top, high school grades and college prep courses still remains an extremely important part of the admission decision, as well as your total high school grades in all courses. So, once again, we primarily look at the core academic subjects, which would be English, foreign languages, social science, social studies, science, and math, but all grades are considered in the admission process. And then, of course, the strength of the high school curriculum still remains as a very important part of the process. So, are you taking the honors courses if that's the highest level? Are you taking advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or whatever the highest level curriculum within your school? Schools very much want to see that you are challenging yourself to the best of your ability within your school, but also that you're performing very well. But one new thing that is actually increased in its importance is positive character attributes. So, what I'm hoping that this shows is that once again, academics is important, but once again, in generally for most highly selective institutions, all students generally are going to have great academics. They're going to have great grades. They're going to have high rigor in their curriculum, but these other particular factors are actually being increased in their value in the admission process, such as positive character attributes, the essay or the writing sample, the interest in a university, and then the recommendations and extracurriculars. So, what I often tell students is that the grades and the rigor will start the conversation. It's these other factors that advance the conversation and then advance you towards admission. So you have to make sure that once again, you're putting in that time and attention to demonstrate all of these different elements because they all become very important, but especially those positive character attributes, which means you need to be demonstrating those in a variety of different ways. And we're going to talk a little bit more deeper about that because it is definitely a factor that is now more new in terms of its importance in the overall admission decisions at institutions of higher education. Anything additional, Kieran?
One thing I want to add, or at least clarify, is that this chart is these are the responses from admissions officers, and it is from a wide variety of institutions. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's correct. It is
Yeah.
from a variety of institutions, so not just highly selective.
Yeah. So this will explain some of the numbers you might see on there that look a little weird, like them saying 17% say the essay has no importance. Those are probably schools that don't require the essay. That's not people who are throwing out
Exactly.
your personal statement when they get it, or your supplemental essays when they receive them. And some of this stuff is going to actually, most of the stuff that Brandon is talking about is going to become even of even higher importance when you talk about the highly elite schools and liberal arts schools. They'll evaluate things differently from a large public school that may admit basically solely on the certain admissions criteria and you're in. But these elite schools and these liberal arts schools and these smaller schools, they hone in on what's really important to them. And those numbers of how important it is might go up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for definitely adding that point in terms of understanding what this chart is trying to illustrate. So let's talk about positive character attributes. So currently, many selective colleges are struggling in terms of balancing high academic standards with some of the harmful side effects that achievement and grind culture have contributed to the US education system. What this is meaning is that many more institutions are focusing on making sure that students are not only focusing on their achievement and trying to do the very best in terms of competitions and academics, but they also want them to have a human side to attending an institution. Because what has been found is that constantly seeking just achievement and constantly being on a grind has been harmful, especially to the mental health of students. So, in an effort to counteract that, more and more highly selective institutions are shying away from it only being about high academic standards, but also, are you going to be a positive person who's going to contribute to the environment of that particular college or university? So, once again, this is one of the reasons for why you're seeing a rise in the importance of these positive character attributes because they want students who are looking to bring positivity to their campuses and not just contribute to a competitiveness or a hyper competitiveness on their campuses. There's a book out there that has definitely honed in on this point, and it's also the subject of a New York Times article in which they state even we've spawned a generation of polite, striving, praise addicted, grade grubbing non-entities, a legion of, as his title puts it, excellent sheep. So basically, what we're using this quote to highlight is once again, this is the attitude that colleges and universities are moving away from. They want students to be fully fledged students, students who are not only bringing their academics, not only bringing their high achievement, but they're also bringing their positivity and a commitment to the community of those universities. To also bring this home is that Harvard's Graduate School of Education has an actual project that is dedicated to this. It is called the Caring Common Project. It encourages students, families, and schools to push past achievement culture as the end all be all in high school. So, once again, even academic institutions and many of the academic institutions that you're seeking for you as a student or you as a parent for your children to go to, they're also dedicating resources to advancing this message that they want a caring and nurturing community rather than it being solely based on academic achievement and extremely high standards. So, in terms of how do you demonstrate these positive character attributes, the application process already gives you opportunities to be able to demonstrate that. But you, as a student, want to make sure that you're utilizing those opportunities by demonstrating those positive character attributes throughout your time as a high school student, but also when you start to engage within the college admission process. So, some ways that that can be done is through the letters of recommendation from your counselor and teachers. So, you always want to make sure that you're maintaining positive relationships with your teachers and your counselors. But we'll talk about this a little later. You want those to be authentic relationships. So, it shouldn't just be you're talking to them for the sake of getting in their good graces because you want it for the purposes of a recommendation. It should be because you genuinely want to interact with the people within your community, but also with your teachers and counselors. So asking them thoughtful questions in the classroom, asking your counselor for thoughtful information rather than it being performative, which could actually have a negative impact in terms of how they characterize you in your letters of recommendation. Your essays, and we'll definitely talk about that, is another great place for you to be able to demonstrate your positive character attributes. This is where you can really show and highlight who you are and your personality outside of, once again, those high achievements and those high grades. The additional information section always is an excellent place to provide additional context. And that additional context can also provide, once again, those additional attributes of what you will bring to a particular college or university. The supplements. This is where you can really once again highlight what is it that you want to study and where is the origin of that reason for why you want to study what you want to study. That's equally as important, other than saying you want to do it to make money or you want to do it to have a certain profession. Notice that side of profession, that side of wanting to make money, not necessarily rooted in a positive character attribute, but saying, I really want to do this because I want to help people. I really want to do this because I have a genuine love and excitement for this subject. That is demonstrating that positive character attribute. The interview, being able to communicate, being able to be receptive to another person, that also is a great way of demonstrating that you have positive character attributes. Many institutions are now offering the opportunity to offer video responses. Brown University, the University of Chicago are probably two of the most highly selective that have moved to adding this as an opportunity for students to be able to see who they really are. So, once again, are you demonstrating that positivity when you talk, or is it coming off as you're reading a script? In which case, there now becomes that question of, is this really you? And then, of course, your activities. Are you demonstrating that you're working in communities? Are you demonstrating leadership? So there are multiple ways in which you can demonstrate these positive attributes. And we here at To the Top Education Group always help our students to be able to highlight these positive attributes in these multiple different places in the application. But you need to make sure that you're doing the work your own self within your school community and within your other environments. Anything else to add?
I just want to acknowledge that students nowadays are put into a really challenging position where there is an inescapable, achievement or grind culture that pushes that people to be perfect, but then at the end they're also asked to be very personable and social and not and selfless. And it's really difficult to deal with all of that. That's something we can help people with. That's something we can help people understand they've been doing, right? These students, no matter how hard you're working, you've been a human being with your own values and relationships and interests this whole time. I just want to say that it's tough, and that is where we, among other sources of support, definitely come in.
Absolutely. And so I'll turn it over to Kieran to talk about the importance of essays.
Yeah, so I want to talk about, like you said, the importance of essays in college admissions. As the college essay coach, the leader of our essay coaching program, I've written a book about this. This is something I think about every day, and not just during admission season. So when we're talking about essays, what we're talking about are the personal statement essay, which usually is more or less the same thing, more or less open a pretty long essay up to 650 words that goes to most schools, generally in the same form. So it can't be tailored to a particular school. It is an expression of some aspect of your life. I could talk about this forever. I'm going to keep it brief. We also have supplemental essays, which are the ones required by specific schools or entities within those schools, such as a particular academic school, like the School of Engineering or the School of Social Sciences, or even within by a particular program, and in some cases for consideration for internal scholarship, stuff like that. Um, Sometimes I would also include a resume if it's required, a written response or a spoken video response, or the additional information sections in this. But the personal statement essay is probably the hardest because students are told to be perfect students academically and socially and extracurricularly extraordinary. And then they're told to be authentic, true to themselves, real, but also interesting kids, teenagers, suddenly in the personal statement. And that's really, really hard to shift gears and do that. And sometimes people have never done anything like this before. So all of our essay coaching is designed to quiet some of the noise and get students to give students a simple framework to write an excellent essay, their excellent essay, not an essay that's better or worse than anyone else's essay, in their class, ideally. Hopefully it's better than some. Um, but they shouldn't aim for perfection, and they shouldn't aim to, especially to come across as perfect. They should aim to produce an essay that is thoughtful, interesting, and personal. That's easier said than done, and we offer a lot of support to do that. But in some ways, I think I don't want you to think that's overly simple. That is actually quite difficult to do and to be thoroughly interesting, very thoughtful, and also kind of undeniably personal. And that's the foundation of everything we do. And it's taken me, 7 years to come up with that system. You can go ahead to the next one. And I think we can both talk about this. Well, Brandon, is there anything else about the personal statement essay? We have a lot of resources. We could talk about this forever, but is there anything else to add in the context of admissions trends?
Sure. So the personal essay is definitely an important factor because, as I mentioned in the beginning part, remember, in general, all of you are going to have excellent academics. All of you are going to have, excellent achievements. The essay is where we get to see the difference once again. What are you specifically bringing? So that's the reason for why you want to make sure that that is something that you put attention into it because, once again, we can clearly see that you do the work. What we want to see is what is your perspective and what you're going to bring that's going to be separated. So that's the reason for why
Mhm,
it's so critical.
mhm,
But also the demonstrating of interest. One of
mhm,
the biggest trends that we have definitely seen with this cycle is that students are not articulating why they specifically want to go to a college or university. Because once again, as you saw, it's getting more competitive. One of the things that schools are always considering is this student really going to take the offer of admission seriously? And one way that they demonstrate that is, are they really talking about us? So you need to be able to articulate your why. Why do you want to go to that particular college or university? But also, it needs to be outside of prestige and location. Those are the two most common reasons why students articulate why they want to go to a university. Well, guess what? The school already knows they're prestigious. Everybody else is
mhm,
probably applying because it's prestigious, but also they know they're in a great location. But the location doesn't necessarily mean that it's specific to that university. So, for example, if a student says that they want to go to a university in Houston or they want to go to Rice because if it's in Houston, the attitude can generally be, well, you can go to the University of Houston, you can go to the University of St. Thomas. That doesn't speak to specifically why do you want to go to Rice.
mhm,
So it can often be the difference between an admit, meaning that the student has really articulated and we can clearly see that they're talking about our university specifically. That'll lead you toward an admit. But if we don't see that unique why or demonstration of interest, it can easily lead you to being, okay, we'll just wait, see if we get other students before that initial group, meaning you're on the wait list, or you know what, we can pass. And that means you're a deny. And it's another way of once again determining yieldability, meaning how likely are you going to say yes to that offer of admission? Because colleges and universities are businesses. One of the ways that they are judged as businesses is, do they have great yield rates? So if you're not demonstrating that interest, that means that you're going to hurt the yield rate, which means we can give you a wait list or a denied decision.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that is especially true. And that has to do not just with essays, but the actual decision of which colleges to apply to. Uh, any given school might be the top school that you could potentially get into with your grades and test scores. That doesn't mean that top ranked school is the right school for you. And I think admissions officers can really sniff out when your reasons for applying are obvious to you, that it's the quote unquote best school you can get into. Because for every school, there's another school of almost exactly the same rank. And they're very, very different. And you need to really you need to actually have these reasons, I think, thought through in order to communicate them effectively in your essay. This isn't about coming up with a attempting fiction for the schools. It's actually believing. We can go to the next one, I think. Um, an issue right now we are facing is the explosion of AI tools that are publicly available, like ChatGPT, probably the most famous one. You can make everything from a college admissions essay very, very easily in seconds to a fake video of yourself or anything you want. You can also hire somebody, and that's been the case forever, to write a polished but fake essay. Um, in both cases, whether it's a computer doing it and that has its own downfalls in terms of style and content and making things up, or you hire someone else to do it, or you ask your friend or your mom or your older sibling to do it, uh, a good essay, authentic essay that demonstrates your personal qualities does not come from somebody else. And I'll talk about this some more, but our coaching is based on that principle that uh, an essay that was clearly written by the highly achieving, smart, thoughtful, sensitive teenager who is applying is really priceless to universities, and they would much rather get that than the quote unquote perfect essay, which does not exist and is certainly not something that was written by a writing professional, which you aren't, or a computer, or an AI, which actually has no idea what it's saying. Um, I've actually seen that Duke University is no longer assigning a numerical score as part of their evaluation to the essay because they just assume that everyone has unlimited access to someone else to write it, to fix it, to make it polished. So they don't actually take that as any sort of indication of the student's writing ability. Though they do take into account the actual information it communicates. You go to the next one, or do you have anything to add to that? So like I said, the principles of our college essay coaching is that we are coaching, we are advising, and we are not ghostwriting, and we're not fixing people's writing. So many students, I would say especially students who have immigrated from China, or haven't been in the US that long and have a different maybe mindset on this, talk about fixing their essays, that they either they want me to tell them how to fix it or they want me to fix it. And fixing implies that we know how the best version of it, and we just need to get it there, like an engine or an airplane. And that's not at all what what essays are like. So that is not our approach. Uh, we dig deep on the positive character attributes, the things that don't come across, or at least maybe are between the lines of the rest of the application. We connect every part of the application to tell a story of who you are and, um, depending on the essay, why you want to attend this school, pursue this career, choose this major, enter this interesting program, whatever it is. Uh, Information is all there. It's either in your history and hopefully it's in your application, but the story isn't there usually. Um, and our services include, so we have admissions consulting packages that cover everything from limited amount of help just to get you over the edge to apply to a few schools, all the way to full service where we help students with pretty much everything. All of those include some number of some amount of essay coaching. Often that's coming from me. Same thing with grad school applications. But we also, for students who really just find the essays the hard part, or who have a lot of support, say at their schools for the college list and all the other stuff, we do have essay only packages, which are new. Whether you need help with just a personal statement or every single essay, me or one of the coaches I've trained will step in and help you with that. You can also do counselor hours with me, which is just a one-on-one, more on that later. And we do workshops, especially starting in the summer, but running into the fall for students who need a little bit of a kickstart and need to get, get moving in a week, whether that's to get a head start or whether that's to catch up. And related to this, I just want to put a little note out there that we are doing reading and writing workshops in March and through May for middle and high schoolers. So maybe, especially if you're not already applying to school, or if you want to get a head start on developing your writing skills for professional, social, and academic communication, we have 3 options. 2 are taught by me. We have beginner reading and writing, which is for people who are non-native English speakers, grades 7 through 12. That'll help you with everything. And we do have support with an experienced ESL teacher, a really talented high school senior who's going to go on to, I'm sure, one of these elite schools we're talking about. We have bilingual help sessions in Mandarin and English. So you don't get left behind just because you don't understand me. We have, on the other hand, we also have advanced academic reading and writing, which is for anyone who is already taking or is going to take a college level course that includes a lot of writing and reading and potentially research. That's IB, AP, or actually just going to college. I have a lot of experience with college and graduate level research and in teaching those. And I'll help you get to the next level to really crush those difficult classes, develop these really important skills that will help absolutely anyone in college, and also get ready for college if that's where you are in the path. And then finally, we have a creative writing workshop with my friend Jason Christian. He was getting his MFA when I was getting my PhD, so he has a degree in creative writing. He is an experienced teacher and he's a highly published writer. He's a really beautiful writer, and he's going to help any student who's really passionate about writing and getting something ready to be submitted for publication in grades 8 through 12. And he'll help you with that, which I think that one of all these will actually be probably the most helpful for the personal statement because of the type of introspection it requires to be a really thoughtful and engaging writer.
And in addition to these, we also offer a communication skills for college class as well that I teach. So
Mhm.
once again, it's another great way for you to develop those communication skills to be able to demonstrate those positive attributes, both within high school, but also you can use it in competitions, in interviews, and in other spaces as well. So we offer a variety of different opportunities to be able to help you in communicating not only in your essays, but also communicating effectively for college.
Mhm. Brief plug for my book. You can get it on Amazon. This is a guide for people who feel pretty confident in their writing and don't need a ton of hand-holding, but want to write their essay on their own and want to have a lot of resources, their personal statement and their other college application essays on their own, and want to have some resources just to help them through it so they can think through it in a more structured way. All right. I think we both have a little bit to say about standardized tests and the changes. Brandon, I think this is your slide, so if you could
This
go.
is. So one of the things that has definitely happened as a trend is test optional admissions. So one of the things that we want to highlight is that as we know with the pandemic, that definitely impacted the ability to be able to take the SAT and the ACT. And then with the advancement of test optional admission, less students have actually taken the SAT and the ACT. And this graph just really highlights that over the years, we have seen the amount of people who have taken the SAT and the ACT go down. So with that, we're just highlighting the fact that the College Board and the ACT, which are the two administrators of this test, have definitely taken notice that less people are taking advantage of the test in college admissions. But as you saw with the first part of the presentation, the importance of these standardized tests has definitely not changed. And in fact, Many highly selective institutions are returning to requiring the SAT and the ACT. So even though the amount of test takers is going down, it's probably going to go up because of the fact that many institutions that were once test optional are now returning to being test required. And even there are some institutions out there, such as Purdue University, which is actually test preferred. So, with Dartmouth and Yale recently announcing that they're returning to requiring the SAT and the ACT, we're also anticipating that many other members of the Ivy League and other highly selective institutions are going to also return to requiring the test. So, therefore, you're going to need to be prepared. And one other thing, especially for our current juniors who will be seniors, and for everyone moving forward, is that there's no longer the paper-based SAT. So many of the current materials that you see out there, such as those old books that you may have used for test prep, they're no longer going to be helpful because we have a new digital SAT. It is in a different format, it is shorter, it is adaptive, and Karen will probably be able to talk a little bit more
Mhm.
about that. There's also an on-screen calculator, so you don't have the use of a manual calculator. You actually use your own personal computer when you take the SAT. If you don't have access to one, you have to make a request from the testing administrator in order to have a computer provided to you. But there's also some major changes to the reading and writing, to the writing sections. So we wanted to definitely highlight that while the SAT has gone down in terms of usage, its importance has not changed. And in fact, it is gaining importance with the fact that more institutions are returning to requiring those tests as part of the admission process. Anything else
Mhm.
you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that the digital SAT isn't the same SAT, but shorter and online. It is fundamentally different, especially the reading and writing section. I like the changes a lot. It's going to be tough for the people the first few years because there aren't that many resources to prepare for it. But there's no longer a long passage you read and then you answer a bunch of questions about it, which was always, I thought, really unfair. But now you do have to move quickly in a different sense where you have to read something, answer a question, completely clear your mind and move to the next thing. In fact, I'll show you in the next couple slides just pretty briefly what it looks like. And I'll actually tell you, these are actually coming from the mock test, the mock SAT platform that we offer for our test prep courses and our SAT courses and our SAT tutoring. But you'll see here, there's two brief texts. This is rare. Usually there's one, and then there's just one question about it. And you can do a lot of the same stuff on both our mock test platform and the real digital SAT that you could on paper, but you have to learn it, right? You can actually cross out what you think is wrong. You can mark things for review. You can highlight. Um, there's interesting stuff like that, but you have to learn how to do it on your screen, and it does not translate directly. I'll talk at some other time if you're interested about what it being modular or sorry, adaptive means. Long story short, it's shorter and it's shorter because the second half of the math and the second half of the reading and writing section is either easier or harder based on how well you did in the first part, which is a whole new wrinkle, absolutely completely different in strategy and psychologically very different than the old paper, pen and paper, or pencil and paper exam. You can show the next one. You can see there's an on-screen calculator. To clarify, you can still use your, TI-81 or your handheld calculator, but they have one on the screen right here. You can type it right in. It might be faster for a lot of people, but it's another thing you've got to learn. The math section, otherwise, format's very different. The actual questions are not wildly different, but it's completely different setup, and of course, it's adaptive. And on that note, I want to make sure we have time for a Q&A, but I want to talk about our exam prep services that are related to the SAT and to the other things. So we have tutoring, one-on-one. You buy a tutoring hour or hours at a discount. You can use them for any of our tutors on any subject. You can do 5 hours in the SAT and 2 hours on AP English language, and then 3 hours on AP Physics, and that's totally fine. And they're redeemable for a year if you buy them in advance. We also have a spring SAT workshop coming up. You're going to get an email if you're on our newsletter tomorrow explaining this a little bit more. But basically, that is a test, mock test based workshop where you take these realistic mock tests with us. You get this statistically driven reports on them that includes not just what did you get right or wrong, but how long it took you compared to the average student. And then you get personalized homework using a lot of these really great resources we have, nearly endless resources. And then that cycle continues. It is compatible if you are interested with traditional SAT classes, which we also offer through our partners. We also have four AP aiming for 5 classes, and that's just basically if you're in an AP class, you want to translate your hard work throughout the class to actually getting a 5 on the exam, or a 4 or 5, hopefully a 5, so that you can use that when you apply to college, and maybe even more so, get a head start when you do get to college and get college credit for the hard work you've already put in. So you don't need to take another introductory college level course. We have that in English, language, and literature. We have that in history, and that covers strategies for all the tests from a historian as our tutor. And we have a calculus AB with a BC add-on if you are taking the BC, because those two classes are essentially the same. BC just has a little bit more. So there is an option to just take one more session to get on that little bit more. And here you can see here's a flyer for the AP aiming for 5, and you can scan that if you want, but it's also on our website at tothetopeducation.com/store. And here, I'll share this and I'll see if Brandon has anything else to add. But I think the key takeaways so far, because admissions results are still coming in, but so far from this last test, the last admission season, is that unfortunately competition is still growing, despite attempts from schools and colleges and everybody to take a step back from achievement and grind culture. It doesn't really seem like that's going anywhere. It's going to be harder to get into schools, and it's going to be harder to get into your top colleges, your top choices, the most elite schools, your ED choices, the ones that you would go to in a minute. That's just going to keep getting harder, and that it just sucks. At the same time, grades, test scores, the level of the classes you take, like AP classes, it's still foundational. It is the baseline. You still need that to get into a good school outside of extraordinary circumstances. But it is just the foundation. And on top of that, you need to elevate yourself with personality and character. We can help you express that on your applications with the essays and your interviews and your activities lists. But also, that's something you need to develop on your own, especially if you're not about to apply to college. And we have ways to help you with that as well. Anything else to add about that, Brandon?
So one thing that I definitely want to add is with respect to the Supreme Court decision, because many people believe that because of the Supreme Court decision, that basically academics numbers got increased. That's not what happened. What actually happened was the essay and those positive character attributes, those things actually went up importance.
Mhm,
So this did not become more of a numerical process. This
mhm,
actually became more of a process of, are we admitting students who are really going to be additive to our environment and are going to be the ones who are going to come to our institutions? So especially that third part about the personality and the character are even more important is something that I really want to drive home to
mhm,
everybody. Because
mhm,
in general, the students are going to have the foundational great grades, but are you really demonstrating those character attributes and the desire to really go to that institution is going to be the thing that's going to be the separator. And things are getting more competitive, not less. So please remember that this is a holistic process. So you need to approach it from a holistic manner.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, totally agree.
And we're here to help you with that.
Yeah, exactly. I said I would return to this slide. I'm going to go through it in a little more detail, but these are the 3 columns on which To the Top Education rests: advanced planning, academy, and admissions services. So advanced planning, the main line, advanced planning is helping you from the transition into high school all the way to your transition to college. Basically starting before ninth grade and helping you, or at any point you decide to sign up, helping you with social, professional, academic guidance, planning ahead, as it sounds like, for not just admissions, like getting into the school that you want to get into, but being prepared for success when you do ultimately go to college. So that's the one pillar, and that is the glue that holds a whole lot of this together because it connects admissions to your academic performance, and often it might even connect to your admissions to a private high school in the U.S. The academy, which I run, and like I said, which is recently expanded, is academic, social, and professional development, especially academic, or things that will serve you in school and in college. So, and this is from younger students all the way up with especially robust curriculum for high school students. A cornerstone of that is our flexible online tutoring, which I've talked about. We've recently lowered the rates for that, so you no longer need to pay to become an Academy member. The Academy membership doesn't exist. If you're watching this, you are an Academy member, and you get the member pricing. And it's a simple flat rate for every type of tutoring you might want, for any tutor you might want to meet with, except that you get substantial discounts if you buy a bundle in advance. And like I said, you can just use those hours for up to a year to meet with any of our tutors online. We also have classes. We've talked about some of the classes now. Brandon teaches a communication class. I teach reading and writing. We have Jason teaching the creative writing. We have the digital SAT workshop. We have our Aiming for 5 AP class series. And we have traditional SAT prep, ACT prep, all kinds of stuff. And this is the most classes we've ever offered at one time, coming up in March through May. And we're hoping to expand on that even more in the summer when people have more time, and then going into the fall. That includes, like I mentioned, test prep. Everyone wants to study for tests. It's always been important. It never really went away, and it was always a good idea to have a good test score just to give colleges one more thing to be sure about when they're admitting you, because they don't like to guess, they don't like to gamble, they want you to gamble, they don't. So regardless of where you are, thinking ahead to the SAT or to turning your hard work in your AP class into a 5 is a really good idea. And finally, admissions. Admissions has been really the keystone of what we do. This is all types of admissions to any competitive academic institution, especially in the US, but not at all limited to the US. Private high schools, boarding schools, summer programs, grad school, and of course, undergraduate. We offer everything from a certain number of hours with some help with exactly what you need just to fill in the gaps, which is the economy plan, all the way to full service packages. That's everything, including unlimited essay coaching, including financial aid guidance, including help with visas if you need it, and anything like that. And then if you just need a little help and you don't need to meet for 10 hours, or you just kind of want to get started and figure out what you even need help with, and you want to go beyond our free consultations, you can do one-on-one counselor hours. You can do that with me, you can do that with Brandon, you can do that, I believe, with Jared. And we're gonna hope to add to the list. And that's basically just an hour where you get our full attention and you just talk to us and we answer your questions and try to get you. We pack a lot of information into those hours. We try to get you as far as humanly possible with as much information as we possibly can in those hours, regardless. And maybe you're good with that, or maybe you come back and you need more help in a more sustained manner. And that's also pretty new. So we'd encourage you to check that out. All right, we've done enough talking for a little bit. It's time for a Q&A. If you'd like to ask a question, you can use the raise your hand function, which is a little hand button on the bottom here. Or if you're not comfortable talking on video, you can also ask a question in the chat. The main thing is please don't ask us to evaluate your specific situation or your child or student their specific situation. We just saw all the resources we have to help you with that. But if you have general questions about the trends, I would love to call on you. Okay, looks like
So we have
Brenda.
Brenda. So feel free, Brenda Yoon, if you want to come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, Brandon. May I ask that how about the differentiation between those international students who in a different system like AP course in other countries instead of USA, and also IP course students, and also let me see, Singapore A level or Cambridge A level international students. Because
Mhm,
you have really mentioned that the grades are the
mhm.
fundamental, right? So the meaning of fundamental, is it about some score knockout marks or just a range?
So when institutions evaluate students, they do evaluate them within the context of the schools they're coming from, and that also applies to our international schools as well. So we evaluate you within the context of how the international education is conducted at your particular school. So, for example, I've evaluated applicants from Singapore, so I have knowledge of those transcripts and those different systems. So if Cambridge is the highest level or the only level within that school, we evaluate students on the Cambridge level. If it's the particular national curriculum, like the one that is done in Singapore, then we evaluate them in that particular context. So we don't change it or we don't expect there to be AP or IB because of the fact that it's not always universally offered. So, and then we also understand that in some institutions or in some areas that they practice grades a little differently, meaning that we know that they grade harsher in some areas of the world than they do in others. So we do evaluate you with that understanding. Does that address your question?
Yes, answer. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I believe we have one in. Okay, do we have any others? You can feel free to either use the raise your hand function, or you can feel free to add your question to the chat.
Mhm. I'll also add that if you're in
Sure.
a situation where you are not confident that, and you can feel free to raise your hand or ask a question while I'm talking. Um, if you're not sure that your specific situation is going to be communicated clearly by your transcript or your test scores or something like that, you have a lot of opportunities to make sure that the readers at the different institutions know. You got the not just your essays, which it may be relevant to put in your essays. There's also a community disruption essay in case something really extreme has happened. That came out of COVID, but it's not only for COVID. But also the additional information section. They love to have relevant specific additional information. Uh, it kind of touched on this, but schools don't like to gamble. They don't like to have to read between the lines. Um, Speaking of sure things, question in the chat, will there be any changes to the Common App essay prompts for 2024-25? No, they have announced just now that they are going to be the same,
Yes,
thankfully.
very,
Um,
very thankful for that.
that's for the personal statement. For most of the schools that accept some kind of personal statement, it's the Common App personal statement or something almost identical. And that's good. That means you can start thinking about it now. Uh,
Hmm.
that said, there always is an open option on there. So you always have the opportunity to write about within the limits of reason, whatever you want. So yeah, that's good. That's good news because we don't always know about the supplemental essays till quite late in some cases, especially if they're scrambling to change things like they did after the Supreme Court decision. Any other questions?
Don't be shy. This is a great opportunity to get questions. So We have one in the chat saying
Mhm.
a magnet program in a high school offers harder courses compared with neighboring high school is harder for students, but actually will lower the rank of the students due to recruited student
Mhm.
body from many schools. Going to a magnet
Mhm.
program like that is bad or good. So here's the thing you have to understand is that once again, you're looked at within the context of the school that you're coming from. They don't do a comparison against schools. Okay. So they
Mhm.
don't say going to this school is better than this school. And on top of that, for some programs, so this is going to once again vary by institution. So for institutions where there is automatic admission requirements, such as the University of Texas, Texas A&M, specifically at the University of Texas, where if you're in the top 6%, you're automatically admitted into the university. That's going to be the thing where class rank comes into play. For highly selective institutions do not have ranking requirements. They often don't even use ranks. The reason being is because there's so many factors within that rank that they just don't use it hard and fast. They really look at, well, what is the curriculum available within the school and what is the student doing with access to that curriculum. So generally, if you have the ability to go to a magnet program, if it really fits your interests and is going to give you access to some great opportunities, I generally recommend go for the magnet program. But also understand that generally when a university is looking at your application, they're going to look at you within the context of coming from that magnet program within that school versus just solely comparing different schools. So what I mean by that is that they're probably going to look at, okay, this student is in the magnet program within that school. What are the other offerings within that particular school? Okay, great. We're seeing that this student is taking advantage of that. That aligns well with what it is that they're interested in, amongst all these other factors. But as
Mhm.
far as a hard and fast on the rank, at least from highly selectives, is not necessarily going to matter as much. The same with most other institutions where they're doing a holistic admission process because they're looking at everything in its totality.
I would add that, a question like that is an opportunity to develop or demonstrate your character, to decide what's important to you. Do you want to be challenged in that way? That might be an experience you could end up writing about, or certainly explaining if something were to happen with your ranking. We have the last question. I'm just gonna blow through this. On Common App awards and honors and activities can overlap. What do you do if there are art awards from art activities? Should it be an award or activity?
So
Um,
I'll just make this really quick.
mhm.
If it is something that is one time, it's probably going to go in an award. If it's something that's been done over multiple years, then it's an activity. That's the key thing is it something that you've done, multiple times, then that's really an activity. If it's just something that you receive for one time, it'll probably go in awards. But we definitely help you that with to the top when it comes to our services in helping you to put it in the best place.
Yeah, that's a strategic decision too. So if you have too much, you might just have to be smart and see what will stretch allow you to fit everything that you want to include in the detail that it merits. So if you have any other questions for us, or you're watching this as a recording or something like that, please feel free to contact us. The easiest way is to go to our website, tothetopeducation.com, but we have WeChat, email. Our emails are Kieran at or Brandon at tothetopeducation.com. You can call. And on that QR code to the right, which is also available on our website on the top right of the bar, is a free consultation. So you can meet with us one of us in the leadership team for 30 minutes just to discuss what you or your child needs help with. And probably we can coordinate a pretty good plan to address anything that they need to make, for your ease of mind, your peace of mind, and their success. So, well, thanks everyone. We'll be back next month, so keep an eye out for another discussion. We also on Pi Day, which is March 14th, we'll have a webinar where I will be hosting with three representatives from three really great academic summer programs for middle and high school students. You can register for that on our website, and I'll be sending out some more emails about that. But you'll get some, I think, some exclusive discounts on some of those too, but also tips on what summer programs to choose and great, representation of some of those best summer programs. Anything else?
Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to working with you on your college admissions journey.
All right, bye.